Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Jay Julio Vela here for another wonderful edition of Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association's Reasonable Doubt. We've been off the air for a couple weeks, and it's a big day in Houston with all the sports. But it's an even bigger day with the latest happenings and news down here at the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. Down here in Harris County, we have an incredible guest today. We have a number of people that are rejoining us. Judge Jordan, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this day when the Texans, Astros, and Rockets are playing. I really appreciate it.
Hey,
Right.
we're trying to bring all the heavyweights. We're trying to unite all of Houston at once and bring them all to town. You know what I mean? That's the plan. Judge, thank you so much for being here. I
Thank you.
promise it. I know that your contributions and the things that you've done for the county are amazing, and which we're going to get into. And thank you for taking the time out to contribute to this program and to our community today. Along with this co-host Justin Harris. How you doing?
Very good. Good to be
And
back.
also, yeah, it's good to be back. And also co-host Damon Parrish. How you doing, brother?
Hey man, what's going on? I like Judge Jordan and I'm very excited to be here as opposed to on my sofa watching the game.
Hey, well, look. Let's talk about a huge score that our county has done by revolutionizing the bail system. Huh? How about that? I mean, that's pretty incredible. So we have another lawyer, Alec, who will be coming back on the show in a second, who can kind of explain a little bit more as to how things got started. But Judge, how about you go ahead and jump in and say and how you identified the need and the desire to take on the Harris County bail system and what exactly the changes were.
Look, and I'm able to. I mean, I've heard the story enough. I can share it with you all. What happened? Alec Karakassanis started this organization called the Civil Rights Corps. He graduated from Harvard Law School, turned down all these big time jobs, and decided to go into public works, just work for the people. He received a Genius Grant. They gave him $250,000 and told him to go out and do good things. And he ended up hearing about Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who at the time was the president or whatever he was, the chairman of the Innocence Project. So he came to Austin, met with Ellis, and told him he wanted to sue Travis County. And then Ellis told him, if you want to bring light to a dark place, you need to look at Harris County. And so they studied the data in Harris County and saw that it was ripe for a lawsuit. And so, Ellis said he didn't really think he was going to bring the lawsuit, but at the time he started reaching out to El Franco Lee and other commissioners, trying to get them, put pressure on them to get things changed. And it never happened. And so the lawsuit was filed. And I'm sure you all have seen the videos that were produced that showed people essentially being denied due process. They would appear in front of a hearing officer, and in a matter of 30 seconds, their bail would be set. They didn't have a lawyer, and they were not allowed to respond. And that set up a really bad situation, especially when it was exposed. And so, Alec and my old colleagues are the ones who set up the perfect storm for bail reform. Fast forward about a year and a half, I was elected. And before I was elected, I sat down with Alec and talked to him, and he explained all the details to bail reform. And immediately I was a believer. I believe that right now, all the issues we have going on in America, dealing with inequality, anytime you have an opportunity to help push the scales of justice a little more to be equal, that needs to be done. So I was in the fight from day one that I took the bench to bring about bail.
How did you meet Alec?
Commissioner Ellis. Commissioner Ellis set it up. He connected the dots, and actually at that time, it was me, the sheriff elect, and the DA elect. All three of us were all in, and we filed declarations with Judge Rosenthal, asking that our predecessors' opinions or ideas be withdrawn and accept ours as the new placeholders in these offices. And so, yeah, we all walked into this the first day full steam ahead on bail reform. We kind of lost one. The district attorney fell off, but sheriff, all the great stuff that he's done. I mean, he's a tremendous asset when you can have one of the big law enforcement officers sit beside you and talk about the racial disparities that he sees in his jail, and when all the dangers of COVID. It's just as the kids say, it hits a little different when the sheriff is saying it, and so he's been a
That is
tremendous
true.
ally and resource, his staff, in helping bail reform come about.
Did you know? I mean, I think I heard you say you kind of had this idea of getting involved in this particular issue before you were elected. I think you said you met with Alec before you were elected. Did
Correct.
you, when you in deciding to run, is this something that, I don't know if you and Rodney Ellis are friends behind, and he said, you know what, we can do something together, and you were kind of somebody they knew they could count on and bear the burden of carrying this torch. Is that something that you kind of thought about before you were getting elected, before you decided to run, or is this something that kind of came about as you were running?
You know, the reason I ran, because we've all been there. We've all walked into court. We've had the law on our side, and we just felt like we were fighting two different people. We had to deal with the DA and we had to deal with the judge. If anybody has ever practiced before me, I say the law is the big joker. Either you bring the law, the case law, show me something, or I'm going to do what I think is right, according to the law that I know. But that's how I believe you have uniformity. You just stick to the doggone law. And I didn't see that being done. My mentor would take me into court with him, and I say, well, hey, I know this is the law. He said, no, but in this court, this is the law. In this court, this is the law. If you're undocumented, you can't get probation in this court. And I was like, there should not be 38 different versions of the law. And so that was one of my motivators for me to run for office. And then once I saw the data on how bail was playing out, that Black and brown people were staying in jail at much higher rates, were being convicted at much higher rates. And, there was this, John Edwards back in the day had this concept of two Americas, where you could have people in Harris County, say me and Vela were going to Target, and we were two college students at U of H. It was a Friday, finals week starts on Monday. Vela goes in and he's buying all healthy food, a bunch of kale and fruit, and I just, and he's poor, but he has a car. Here, I have money, but I just like to steal. I'm like Lindsay Lohan, and I'm over there just stealing video games, and we meet at the cash register. We walk out together. They're going to get both of us under the law of parties and say we conspired to steal these video games. And then Vela's car gets towed. That's $200 or $300 a day. My parents have money. I bail out. I go home. I show up that Monday to my court date. I get a pretrial diversion program, and my case is dismissed, and I was guilty. Whereas Vela's sitting in jail, he's innocent. The court-appointed lawyer comes back there, and he says, "Well, what happened? You explained the story that you were getting kale." And then the lawyer says, "Well, great. We can get the video and get your case dismissed." And then you say, "Well, how long does that take?" He says 4 to 5 months. Or if it's an HPD body cam, it's going to take at least 6 months before the DA's office can even escalate it. And so at that point, you have to make a choice. Do you lose your home? Do you lose your car? Do you flunk out of school? Or do you plead guilty that day to time served or deferred adjudication? And so that is a messed up system that operated in Harris County for decades, where people were forced to choose whether they were going to plead guilty or stay in jail and fight for their innocence. And that's not, I tell people, if I want a fair fight. If I end up doing 20 years in prison, let it be because I did something wrong in the case, they could prove it, not because I could not afford to pay my bail. And so that's what we've done in Harris County. The results show it. They've done a 1-year study, and this is an independent third party, the federal monitors, and it came back And if you guys have a chance, look at the study. It shows that Black and white people receive the same treatment. It shows that the recidivism rate for 6 months out and 90 days out is the lowest that it has ever been since, or lowest that has been since 2015. Now, the one thing that I would like to explain, it shows the cost went up. But along with misdemeanor courts now using pretrial services, which attributes to the cost, felony courts are also using pretrial services. So they had to ramp up their staffing. So I believe that is the reason for the cost. But to keep a healthy person in jail in Harris County, it's about $200. To keep them out on pretrial supervision, $200 per day. To keep them out on pretrial supervision is 87 cents a day.
87
Wait,
cents.
say that again.
87 cents. For somebody who's out on pretrial release, it is 87 cents. And for the healthy
And that's money
person,
the taxpayers pay. The 200,
taxpayers' money.
300 versus
And so
87 cents.
87 cents. So I'm willing to go anywhere and argue that bail reform has made Harris County safer, and it has saved the taxpayers of Harris County a tremendous amount of money. And it is also, which is most important, it has kept hundreds of thousands of civil rights violations from occurring, because that's what Judge Rosenthal ruled, that people's civil rights had been violated. Some people called the O'Donnell lawsuit one of the biggest civil rights cases of our time.
Wow.
Mark, we don't have Alex not in the waiting room or anything, is he, Mark?
No, Alex said there was a big storm and it knocked out his internet, and he's going to try to get back on.
I see. Okay, thanks. So, Judge, I'm wondering, where is that savings being seen? Like, is there more money in the sheriff's bank account now? Is there more money in the county bank account? Is that what court? Where did that $200 a day per person come from, and where is that? Is it being diverted and used somewhere else? Is there any idea?
Well, I like to be accountable for the things I say. I don't like having press conferences with a whole bunch of chiefs of police and just make stuff up and tell stories or resort to fear mongering. So I'll let the researchers come out and show where that savings is going to go. But again, in the report that was released, the cost went up. But I attribute that cost to, when we look at the number back in the day in 2018, the number of PR bonds were coming strictly from my court. Now you have 16 courts. And so that caused pretrial services to hire more staff to accommodate all the requests. And then now you have felony court judges who are doing pretrial release. So they needed more staff. And I know you guys have driven by that building on the side of the courthouse and seen the line out the door. And so despite felony bail reform not being there, you do have felony judges who are releasing people on PR bonds. And so I think that's why the cost went up. But again, the federal monitors will be with us for 7 years. And so that we will be able to be checked. And I think that's what every politicians, I hate being called a politician, but I'm a politician who tells people, if I do things you don't like, vote me out. If I tell you something, go check it. If you see I'm doing something and I'm lying about it, call me out on it. And so everybody should do that for all politicians, because you all are my boss. I work for the people. And until we look at every politician that way, we're going to continue to have problems where people just come lie and fearmonger and do stuff and then go back to their offices and do the complete opposite of what they told the people they would do. I'm upfront and honest about everything I do and have nothing to hide, because it's not my business, it's the people's business.
Hey, to
That's
answer your
great.
question about the funding, if you look at the sheriff's office, a lot of those deputies, those jailers, had to work overtime shifts to cover the jail, and so it was almost mandatory for deputies to work their 40 plus an additional double or two doubles, and sometimes they work like 2 shifts straight, 8 hours off, another 2 shifts straight, 8 hours off, and then a regular 4 shifts. So I would imagine part of the savings you're talking about, Justin, is coming from the sheriff's office not having to staff so many deputies or having to force so many deputies to have mandatory overtime in the jail. That's one
I
place
see.
I would imagine that you would see some savings.
How is it that if most of the, I might have one or two individuals in in jail and misdemeanor, and that's just because they have only individuals I have in jail for misdemeanor case are individuals who have other issues that are keeping them there. Um, and I'm still wondering: is are the jails still overcrowded? Are they still to maximum capacity?
Absolutely. It's
Absolutely.
at a critical stage of overload. Right now, I didn't check the numbers before I got on, but the sheriff, in order to spotlight this issue, has a dashboard. You can go on the sheriff's website real time and see jail trends. The last time I checked, which has been about a month, there's about 8,500 people in jail. Only 200 of those people there were for
If somebody
misdemeanor.
were to allow me to share my screen, I can show you the dashboard real quick if you
Yeah,
want to
how
see
many
it.
people are in there right now, Damon?
Sure.
Share
8,479.
it. Throw it
Yeah.
up.
Share it. All right.
I want to
Oh
see how
no,
this
the host,
works.
whoever's hosting has it disabled.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, don't
Yeah.
worry
So
about it.
we'll
Well,
take Damon's word. Like, and so okay.
Got it.
the, ooh, thank
he,
goodness it was that TV. That
He
computer
was that.
screen, man.
he had his own screen. No,
That'll work.
it's all good. But there's about 8,400 people there. But and that's just that's just what we sit at. And so then when you add in COVID, to that, and how that is just a super spreader environment. There's no social distancing. I mean, look, if you're sharing the same toilet as 25 other people in your pod, that's a bad situation. And the sheriff is breaking his neck to do all he can, and thankfully that hasn't resulted in a lot of people getting sick. But one person dying is too many when that could have been avoided. There's this crazy thought that goes around. Give you a scenario. Say I have a 18-year-old son, and he's outside playing his music loud, and the neighbor comes and tells him to turn his music down, and they get in an argument, and my son gets killed. Under the way things are in Harris County right now, he'd probably be given a $50,000 bond. Then he pays $5,000 and he goes back home. And then the next day, I walk outside and I see him getting into his car. I immediately start crying and shaking because I'm so afraid. Then I call the DA, I call the judge, and I say, "Look, I saw my neighbor. He's outside my house. I'm afraid. What can I do?" And they just begin to laugh. They say, "Sir, what are you afraid of? He paid $5,000 to get out. He's safe. Why are you so worried? Don't you know that money makes people safe?" Now, when I tell it to people that way, it sounds absurd, but that is the
It is.
system that we have operated on for hundreds of years. The crazy thought that somebody paying money makes them safe. And it does not. I will tell you, conditions make people safer. There's nothing that makes anybody 100% safe. But if you gave them conditions, stay 200 feet away, gave them a leg monitor with protective zones, don't go in these areas. If you do, we'll be alerted. Those are things that keep people safer. There is nothing to keep people safe other than keeping them in jail. And we have laws that prevent that. And so um, it just troubles me, but I'm thankful that this research has shown that money does not keep people safe. And I beg other counties to look at the data. We don't refuse anybody to come in the misdemeanor court system and study. We have people here from Harvard, all over, some researchers from Australia. They wanted to come research. Please, we have nothing to hide. We want our system to be better, and we want it to be the role model for all county courts, even felony courts across the country, because it can be replicated in other places. Travis County, I'm sad to say, we don't have the best bond system. Travis County adopted our rule and added it to their system, and they have the best now. And I'm thankful that I was able to go there. It's a difference when people work together. When people put elected officials in office, they expect us to work together for the best part of the people. They don't expect us to be fighting and arguing and get nothing accomplished. When Alex set it up for me to go to Travis County, and when I walked in that room, every elected official who was a stakeholder was there, from the sheriff, the county attorney, the DA. There were about 150 people in that room there to listen and ask ask me questions about our Rule 9.1 and how it was working and what was going on, and the next day they passed it. That's what leaders do. They don't sharpshoot each other. They don't release stuff to the media when they've never come and talked to the other stakeholders to fix the issue. Politicians have to quit trying to be in office and start doing their doggone jobs.
Judge, I wanted to, if I could, follow up with you on something that you mentioned. So you talked earlier about pretrial services, and you just said some things about conditions. And one of the things you mentioned was like an ankle monitor. I've heard other attorneys and some people talking about how pretrial services is starting to feel like, pre-guilt probation. How do you, as a judge, first, what do you think about that? Because if you are someone, and I don't want to talk about a murder suspect who hypothetically murdered your 18-year-old son and lives next door to you, but somebody on a misdemeanor charge, as bad or as light or petty, so-called, as a misdemeanor, whatever, pick the charge. But how do you balance? What do you think about people who say that you're sort of treated like you're on probation because you have to pay for that ankle monitor, you have to wear the ankle monitor, you have to follow a curfew, you have to blow into a device, you have to go down there twice a week or once a week or randomly to pee in a cup. That's all things you have to do when you're on probation too, and it costs somebody money to do those things, even if they got a free bail. I know some of those ankle monitors are starting to come for free. Some of the blow devices are starting to come for free. But what do you think of that? And then how do you balance that as a judge when you're dealing with someone who no evidence has ever been presented of guilt in front of you or any court?
Yeah, the technical term, they call it e-incarceration. And they talk about the dangers. There's validated research that shows over conditioning is just as bad as leaving somebody in jail because you almost set them up to fail. It's like when somebody gets out of prison and they have to report 3 times a week. Well, how the heck am I going to get a job and you have me running around 3 different places a week,
Right.
and I'm going to lose my job? And so what I do, my goal is to have people hit my courtroom one time and then have a course correction and guide them back the other way. And so just hypothetically, if I have somebody who comes to my court and they've been on felony bond and have 3, 4, 5 pending felonies, then they get caught with a ski mask and a gun in the car and it's a UCW. Yeah, you're gonna leave with a leg monitor. You're gonna leave and it's not to punish. I'm trying to save your doggone life. I'm trying to save you from getting another felony. And there's also validated research that shows a leg monitor accomplishes nothing. But hey, maybe mentally for this person it will work, that says, hey, they know where I am, so I need to chill out. But it's I'm telling you guys, it's being a judge is as close as you can get to having 3, 4, 5 kids and trying to raise them. I mean, being a judge is more like being a parent than anything else. And as a parent, we all do the best we can for our kids, and we want them to be better than what we are. And as a judge, it's that same thing. You want what's best for the people. At least that's what I can say. I want what's best. And I feel like in certain situations, convicting people and sending them back out on the street with a conviction and a slap on the wrist for a theft case, and then they have a theft on their record for the rest of their life, you're really setting them up for failure, because when they do turn their life around, they can't get a job. And so, I'm really big on programs. I'm really big on YMAC. And it's hard it just depends on how we all grew up. If you grew up in the hood and the most successful person is Johnny on the corner selling dope, then doggone it, you grow up wanting to be Johnny on the corner selling dope. And that's realistic to you. That's what you see. There are still communities that I go into when I tell them I'm a judge and they don't believe it. Or they say stuff like, you're special, I could never do that. Then I tell them about how I was homeless, how I lived in child abuse shelters, how I was on every government assistance program. I said, we can exchange sob stories for an hour. So what I want to do is help people get on the right track and never get to felony court. Some of my last murder cases I dealt with as a defense attorney were 17 and 18-year-olds who, when they came in my office, I went and got their cases dismissed by having them do stuff like wear a suit to court, take a drug class. And the next thing you know, they're back in my courtroom charged with murder. Back in my office charged with murder. And so you never know what people are dealing with. And that's why, defense attorneys have it's a very hard job. it's a very hard job because for some people you're their only hope. It's like Luke Skywalker. You're my only hope. And they come into the office, they don't know how to dress for court. They oversleep for court. They can't stop smoking weed because of other trauma they're dealing with, mental health issues. And here you are about to get their case dismissed. They get a drug, then they get a drug charge, and they've screwed everything up. But in their mind, because they're not doing ag robs or doing whatever, it's just like, I'm just smoking weed. I'm not hurting anybody. And so as a defense attorney, you have to go in and educate. There's no training. I don't care if you've been a lawyer for 20 years, there's no training to be a judge. It's just something you have to get on there and do the best you can and hopefully learn and evolve and take advice from others. I'm a very open judge. I don't think I'm right all the time. That's not possible.
One of the things that the article touched on was that, and you've touched on this whole idea of fear mongering, that if you let people out on bail, oh no, they're out on bail, they've got a free bond, and now they're going to go out and commit more crime, because that's what these people do. That's what people do. They commit crime. If people get arrested, that means that they're a criminal, and then if they get released on the bond, then they're going to commit more crime because that's what they are. Have you seen that? And can you address that with the study? I think the study says that, in fact, no, that people are not these individuals who would generally have taken a time served to be kept in jail. They're not going out and committing new crime. Is that right?
That is 100% correct. The recidivism numbers are the lowest they have been since 2015. There's validated research, and I know that's my favorite word of the day, validated research, that shows the longer you keep a low-level offender in jail, the more likely they are to reoffend. The reason being, you take a person who was probably struggling living paycheck to paycheck, you cause them to lose their job, their car to be towed, or whatever, then they get out with nothing. So they have to resort to whatever they can do to get their life back together. And I know there's somebody out here watching who's saying, well, they didn't do it. I mean, if they didn't want to do the time, they shouldn't have done the crime. As a judge, even though it's not popular, I'm required to live by innocent unless proven guilty. Innocent unless proven guilty. And so bail is not meant to punish. And I think a lot of times you have politicians who are afraid to go out and truly educate the people, because you have to spend time and help them understand that. I'm sure you all can tell stories about people who were facing 25 to life. And then you represented them and it turned out not to be them. It turned out that they were innocent, turned out they were in another state. Those are the stories of a defense attorney that they see every day. But for the common person, if you are arrested for something, you did it and you deserve the worst punishment. And what people don't understand is those people, even though when you send a 17-year-old to prison for 10 years, he's going to come out in 5, and now he's received a Harvard and a Rhodes Scholarship in how to be a criminal. And so he's coming back to a neighborhood near you. So wouldn't you rather get him on the right track? I mean, we've had some of our most recent presidents who have engaged in some questionable behavior, and they went on to hold the most powerful position in the world. I was no angel growing up, and my mentor, Commissioner Ellis, was the son, or is the son, of a yard man, and his mother was a maid. And I think that's part of the reason we connect so well, because we both come from, just nowhere. So you're able to understand what it's like to be in the White House or be in the crack house, and all those people are worthy. And so that's why when people stand in front of me, I don't see criminals. I see, hey, you could be Darrell Jordan. You could be Damon Parrish, Vela, whatever. You could be any of us, and so it's all about, and I think that's what people are out protesting. A lot of my friends, I had a chance to live in Missouri, which was a very nice place, voted one of the best places to live. Then I lived in Georgia, in Albany, a little small town. It was the murder capital, still ranked right now as one of the worst places to live. And I saw my Black friends in Georgia who smoked weed and did all kind of crazy stuff. get in and out of trouble. And they're still doing it to this day. And then in my white friends in Missouri who spent their college savings smoking weed, doing mushrooms, they all went to college and did all great things. It was a safety net. It was the safety net at home, the guidance at home. But when your parents are missing, single parent family, mom or dad working 12 hours a day, it's a different safety net. And unfortunately, people can't relate to that world or that path that they've never walked down. And so, sometimes I ask myself, why did I grow up with such a rough upbringing? But I think it was just destined for me to go through all that stuff and experience those things. So when I got on the bench, I wouldn't be afraid. When I went to court and testified against all the judges, people kept telling me I was so
Yeah.
courageous. But, I went back to the hood mentality. And for those of you who have never been in the hood, everything in the hood rolls back to, can he whoop me? So if Baylor's talking to my girlfriend, they say, hey, you're talking to Darrell's girlfriend. Baylor says, can he whoop me? So that's what everything boils down to. So I was like, nobody wants to fight me. Why is this courageous? What courage does it take to get up somewhere and talk? What courage does it take to stand up for the right thing? But then I saw other people get in office and they refused to stand up for the right thing. So now I kind of understand a little bit more about the courage part.
Let me ask you about.
So this is because you're really tall, Judge. We don't get to see that on the camera. So you weren't courageous. You just weren't afraid because you were bigger than everybody and you could whoop them.
No.
Right?
I'm not saying that. I mean, they were so. Hey, if people don't like what I'm doing, I lose my office and I go back to being a defense attorney, living
Sure.
a good life.
So democracy whooping.
Yeah.
Whooping at the polls.
And I don't define myself by my position. And so if I lose my job, then okay, so be it. It was only guaranteed to be mine for 4 years anyway. And so I'm not a person, I don't make decisions to be reelected. I make decisions to do what's right. Because one day my son may be in court, shoot, I may be in court. And I want things to be fair. And I tell my white buddies, hey, look, the demographics in America are changing. And so it's not equality isn't just a black thing. So when the shoe flips and we're a majority minority country, you're gonna wish you were standing up for equality when the other shoe was on the other foot.
That's right. What do you think about? I saw Jacob Blake's father, Jacob Blake Sr., doing some interviews, and he's made a point consistently in his interviews that there's two justice systems, and he's trying to get his son's justice over into the white justice lane. What do you think about that? Do you think there's anything to that?
Well,
I would say that it's probably not. There are definitely two justice systems, and I would say I don't know if it's black and white so much as rich and poor, and access, not access. There are lines of equality and lines that it is very common for social economic status for minorities to be on the lower status, and thus to the more harsh forms of punishment. And I'm not saying justice is blind because I definitely tell you it's not. But I would definitely think more than being blind, it judges your wallet. And those that have the means and the money to afford and the access and the power seem to have a better shake at the justice system than those who do not.
But don't you think, Damon, that sometimes it can come down to black or white and the shades in between that get the person in front of the judge before justice is meted out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at all denying that justice. I'm not, like I said, justice is definitely not blind. It sees color, right? It starts on the street level with the cops who happen to find PC or not Brady Stops. Oh my gosh,
Terry stops.
Terry stops before in certain neighborhoods. The as Michelle Alexander put, the over policing and militarization of police in minority and lower income neighborhoods. And what I'm saying is, what you see is that those trends are over policing, Terry stops in lower income neighborhoods, which happen to almost always be predominantly minority, black or brown people. Um, you don't see the same active police force in River Oaks. You don't see the same active police force in Kingwood. You get the benefit of the doubt when you're in River Oaks. You get the benefit of the doubt when you're in Kingwood. You are more likely, even as a black person, to get that if you are rich or if you have money. Now, obviously, like I said before, I'm gonna say it again. Ahmaud Arbery taught us that no matter who you are, race is definitely important. I'm not denying that, but I would say more so than black and white, we have a money issue here.
Yeah,
We have a rich versus poor issue.
It's those resources. I remember, and I won't call out any names, but being in the elevator with some big dog lawyers, and they were talking about how they paid an expert $20,000, and they're flying in for their trial. And here, I couldn't even get a trial fee paid, and I have my intern, and we're all in there doing the best we can. And yeah, sure, you may be a great lawyer, but yeah, it helps when you're LeBron James and you got AD with you on your side. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And when you don't have those resources, then it's hard. And I'm thankful for my colleagues who came in with me. When those new judges came in, then we literally sat down and went through every possible thing that we had the power to change, and we began to change it. Just like with the managed assigned counsel system, some of these court appointed lawyers have six, seven, 800 cases, and I know some of them are super lawyers, but everybody has a breaking point. When you go to court and you have 15 clients, man, shoot, I couldn't imagine having 15 clients in one day in one court. And so we're trying to change that system, and hopefully that will be fixed, in the next 3 to 4 months, because we're trying to hire a Mac director now, and then the pay. When you're not paying lawyers properly, how can they afford to give the proper attention to each and every one of their cases? And so we need to fix those things. And then we started the cite and release. They have been trying to do that for 4, 5, 6 years. We got it done in 9 months. I mean, if somebody came in and looked at all the stuff that we changed in 1 year, it's historic. It's historic.
It was an overnight shift, Judge. You're
Yeah.
right.
And the only difference was we went in and said, this system is broken. We are going to fix it. And I believe that's why women are underpaid. That's why minorities make less. It's because people who are in the positions of power sit at the table and say, it's okay. Or let's worry
Works
about
for
that.
me, right?
Yeah, let's worry about that next time. But what I do, and this is how I made a whole bunch of enemies, I go in meetings, and when somebody says something crazy, then I say something about it. I say something about it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that.
Can you talk a little bit? Sorry, JV. I wanted to segue off that into the Mac. If you had something else, go ahead.
I mean, sure.
Can you talk a little bit? I know the show's talked about the Mac before, the Managed Assigned Counsel program that's coming to Harris County. But for those who don't know, can you give a little summary of what that is? And then for those of us who are going to be affected by it, can you kind of tell us what some of the changes are that we can expect?
And so what's going to happen is
what's happening right now, and
Yeah.
what's the plan for it to change, and then what are we going to see?
So right now, judges decide who the lawyers are. And then there's inherent bias. There's no way. I had lawyers who I know are good, and I constantly hire them back because I know that they're good. And then there's some judges who hire lawyers because they're their friends. It's all kind of reasons you hire. Somebody may hire somebody because they're cute. Who knows? It's just humans.
That's how JV gets all that work.
That's funny. That's funny.
And so what we've done is the Republican judges before us had traveled around to all these places and had set up a framework for managed assigned counsel. Then Hurricane Harvey happened. Anyway, so we literally picked up the ball at the 10-yard line and ran it in. And so now what we're in the process of doing, we did a nationwide search. Interviews are taking place as we speak to get a director. Once the director comes in, then people will still be taking appointed cases, but they will come through the MAC and not through the judge. I believe that when you go out and you buy your $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house, and you're depending on the judge to keep selecting you, it's a little bit harder to go in there and flip the table over or to get in an argument with the judge because you're afraid, hey, I may never get picked again in this court, or they may blackball me with all the other judges. Well, that won't happen. It can't happen with the MAC because it'll be a complete third party. Now, the difference is nobody, in my opinion, will be able to make a living solely off of court-appointed cases because it will be the ABA guidelines. And so you may only have 140, 150 cases a year, whereas before, that's how many you had in a month. I think it's five cases a day, 30 days or 20 days. That's 100 in a month. And so that's going to be the biggest change. But then there'll also be paralegals. There's going to be an immigration attorney. All these different resources, mentoring, CLEs. It's just basically trying to grow the defense bar. And go ahead.
What you said paralegals, like support staff for the attorneys are going to get paid?
Support staff, well, they're going to be in-house. But if you, so, and they will do like it's social workers as well that will help you with mitigation packets in all those different things. And so it's just going to just raise the bar. Not so much for the top end lawyers, because most of them don't do court appointed anyway, but for the lawyers who just threw their shingle out and and they're struggling and out here they have a family to feed and they're doing the best they can. This will be an additional resource. And as far as the legal staff, besides the attorney, the deputy, the immigration attorney who's there, there's not going to be a lot of lawyers who are staffed as part of the MAC. So I know people were concerned about the monitoring, but it won't be humanly possible for somebody to be monitoring all your cases and the outcomes. But there will be a system where people can be removed, a grievance, and a lot of that. We've just set the framework, but how it's going to work will be up to this person who's hired. I mean, they're going to be at the pay level of the DA and of the public defender. And
I'm getting warned to give JV a little bit more time, but I gotta okay. Push a little bit on this one point, Judge, because I've talked to you about this privately. But why can't I have two women who work for me in my office? They're my paralegals, my legal assistants, and I can't bill a minute of their time while I'm sitting here. One of them is in the office and she's working on my cases. Most of them that she's working on right now are court appointed, but I have a hard and fast rule in my office. We don't treat any client differently, whether they're retained or whether we're retained on the case or appointed on the case. So every time I get a court appointed case, my staff works the case just like someone walked in and paid us thousands of their hard-earned dollars. Why can't we bill for their time? Is that something that y'all have talked about or thought about?
That is a great question. And no,
because let me make this point. The public defender's office gets county funds to pay for. Damon, you have a paralegal, right?
Don't. So you can make your point, but I'll answer the question about the public defense office does not have paralegals.
You have legal assistants and staff.
I have we have administrative assistants. Yeah.
Okay.
Like
the district attorney's office has the same thing, and all those are paid
but we
by
don't
the
have
county.
paralegals. I have to do my own legal research. I have to do or ask another lawyer in the office for help. But we definitely
do you set up your case files?
I'm all electronic, so yes, everything I do is electronic.
The office doesn't set those things up?
I don't know what you mean by that, but I download my own offense reports. I do my own discovery request. I go to the portal and do it myself. I catalog it. I put it in my own files.
Okay.
I mean, I organize my own file.
I didn't know how
I set up my case file. I don't have somebody who hands me a ready-made file. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, go ahead and make your point for sure. But we don't. I know at the PD's office, we don't have someone who hands me a file ready for me to go do my job. They may hand me a file, like a file with my client's name on it. But as far as organizing that file, getting it together, getting the discovery together, doing my legal research, no, we do that all on our own.
Well, paralegals shouldn't do legal research, but the district attorney's office, they have support staff who, whenever a DA needs something, they ask their administrative assistant to get that over to me. And I'm getting emails from those folks saying, hey, this video is going to be ready to pick up in 1 to 3 business days at this address.
Justin, you want me to give you the bottom line answer?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'll stop talking.
No, I'm just going to get straight to it. In general, people have the mindset, if you didn't want to get overworked lawyers, if in jail, when they take your underwear and they wash them, you just get the other person. So if the four of us were in jail, and I may get Damon's draws or I may get Baylor's, you don't get them back. And why is that acceptable? You know why that's acceptable to people? Because if you didn't want to live that life of wearing other people's underwear, then you shouldn't have done the thing. So people don't want to fund it. People don't want to fund it. When we try to go and make changes, even with this bail reform or whatever it is, people do not like funding people who they see as criminals, despite the fact you're innocent until. So that's why, because of course, if we had to pay the bill for paralegals and this person and that person, that would probably multiply the budget 2 to 3-fold. And so that's why that's why people get raped in prison. How do you get raped and you're surrounded by police officers or security guards? Because people say if you didn't want to get raped, you didn't want this, you shouldn't have done the crime. And so the bottom line answer is because the people with the money don't care. That's the answer.
Oh, I agree with that, but that doesn't make it right.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It's just
fair.
something else. It's something else for us all to fight for. Anything that's equality based, I'm all for it.
Well, I'm going to keep sending you emails, and I'm going to keep bugging you in the elevators.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, and today was my last day on the bench. I'm in the Army, and my unit is being deployed, and we leave here before the end of the month. So I'm going to take a little time, spend with my family and my friends before I pop smoke and get out of this country and go to the Middle East. But when I get back, the fight is still on for equality. That's if I'm still a judge. I mean, I'm on the ballot in November, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I would be extremely proud if I was just one term of all the things I've accomplished. But as Justin just pointed out, there's still work to be done, and I want to go back in there and fight for change. So, when I get back, Justin, definitely let's get together and let's sit down. And the MAC will be running then. So when the MAC is hired, they're going to go around to all the stakeholders. So make sure you all sit down and talk with them and help them understand your plight and what you're dealing with and see how they can be a resource for you.
When is the tentative or official kickoff of the MAC?
Oh, the interviewing is taking place now.
And so once the interviews are done, this individual will get started. I mean, right?
I mean, imagine, this is a new county department. So I would imagine if the person was hired October 1st, I don't see how you're up and running before October 1st, a year later, or maybe 9 months later or 10 months later, but it can't be anything immediate because you're literally a department. I think the max salary is like 180, more than the judges are making. So, this is a for real deal department. Then you got to hire a deputy. Then you got to hire those paralegals. You got to hire the immigration. But first you got to lay your groundwork. So I don't see how anybody could accomplish that short of 9 months to a year, starting a whole county department.
You mentioned, I thought I heard you mention pay. Will there be a pay increase for the misdemeanors or no?
It'll be a pay increase, but it won't be enough to live off of. I was told some court-appointed lawyers are making $1 million. I was like, shoot, I need to get out of this game.
Not
what?
Me.
Yeah, I don't know who they are. I don't know who they are, but they have those.
That's got to be in felony court, Judge. That's not a misdemeanor court.
Oh no, not a misdemeanor.
The most you can make in misdemeanor court is $1,250 a week.
Yeah,
that's the most.
Also, Judge,
$1 million. I just. Whew.
This might sound crazy, but Harris County is a massive county, and I don't know how many individuals are on a normal felony docket. Like, is it 700 or is it like 1,200?
I don't know what the normal numbers are on a felony docket. I know right now in the county courts we have anywhere from 23 to 2,800 people on our docket at one time.
Are there? I genuinely mean this. Are there enough misdemeanor people on the list to cover, if everybody's going to be limited to, let's say, 100, 120 ABA guideline, are there enough qualified attorneys in town that are on the list to handle that?
Yeah, and see, that system is going to all have to be revamped because you're going to have to expand the pool of eligible lawyers. But we all know a lawyer, I won't call his name, who always complains about not getting work. That system will change. That system will change. They're going to have to go out and seek people, just like with the ACCLA. It's been a while since I was on the listserv, but back in the day when they used to have the second chair program, there's going to have to be a program like that, because right now you have to have certain qualifications to become a court-appointed lawyer. But under the new system, you're going to have to be going to these law schools and recruiting people and say, hey, when you come out, we'll put you in the program and team you up with a lawyer. So it's gonna help raise the bar for the defense bar, if you will, when the MAC comes, because of the training and the resources. And we all know baby lawyers who have stepped out and had an ag rob case or even a murder case, and they've only been out of law school for 6 months, but hey, they got a family to feed and they about to learn off of Johnny going to prison for 25 years. You know, and so, we need to stop that system. Unfortunately, the MAC right now will only be in misdemeanor court, but the TIDC is prepared to fund it for the felony courts and the juvenile courts. It's just up to the judges to decide they want to do it.
Let's talk about, if we mind, Damon, do you have any more thoughts on the MAC?
No, I don't have any thoughts on the MAC, to be honest with you. At least none right now.
Let's move on to, if we can, for the last kind of 8,
You're
9.
You're not going to sing, JV?
Return of the MAC. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Now
Be the
look,
first time you hadn't done that.
let's talk about jury trials, Judge. I mean, you said you're not coming back until, I guess through the rest of the year. Now, will you be having any jury trials out of your court until then, or no?
Judge Michael Fields 3.0 will be sitting on my bench.
Oh, yeah.
I stress the 3.0 because if you've appeared in front of him lately, it's not the original. This is version 3.0.
What was version 2.0?
Well, he's had some different journeys. When he left the bench, he took a job working for different agencies. Then he went down and hung out with DA Middleton for a little while, and now he's back on the bench. And so he's had some different transformations there. I mean, even in bail reform, I was just a crazy street fighter, just swinging as we say growing up, doing the windmill. But when Judge Fields joined the fight on bail reform, then it was more strategic. He came with so much history and knowledge that you only get by sitting on the bench for 20 years. And so, it's just a transformation. I think a lot of times you can work with people and you just get caught up and do what they do. But then, as he says, when somebody shows you the light, it helps you to wake up. And so I'm thankful for his assistance in the fight, and I know he'll continue the stuff that I've been doing.
Judge Jordan, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And it's about Judge Fields. You mentioned him being Judge Fields 3.0. If you can answer this question, how do you answer to those who have practiced in front of 1.0 for years? You said he's been on the bench for 20 years. 1.0 on the bench is not somebody I would think would be reflective of the current values you have. I've never practiced in front of 3.0, and I don't. So I do felony public defender work. How do you, if possible, tell lawyers, or I don't know if you can do this, but how do you convince lawyers that 3.0 and 1.0 are different, and 3.0 is here to stay?
Yeah, and all I can tell people is just come by court 16. Come by court 16. Talk to people who have talked to him. And Judge Fields, he's a like they kids say, a grown man. They had an extra word in there, but he's a grown man, and he'll be there. But I am literally putting my stamp on him. He was hand selected by me to sit on my bench. And so if you just look at my body of work for the past 4 years since I've been on the bench, I'm willing to put my credibility on the line on the type of person that I have sitting there and what he'll do.
Do you have some?
Well, you heard it here. We had a great show with you and Judge Fields back during the election time. That was one of our better shows.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have some trials set in your court, Judge?
Absolutely not. It's thing is, we don't have people in custody.
Right.
We don't have people in custody, so the urgency is not there. Whether your case is tried right now during a pandemic or this summer, yes, being out on bond is a life stopper. But with everyone's concerns about having a fair trial, I don't want to force anybody to do it. Now, some people have come in and said they want to have a trial. It was a bench trial, And that's up in front of the Court of Appeals right now. So hopefully we'll get a ruling on that, on whether people can have a bench trial. But, I think the history of the criminal justice system, judges have to be able to make shifts and changes to ensure that everyone feels like they're getting justice. I mean, we have to get to that stage. Right now, I have people who have to go do jail time who are going to report this summer with the hopes that the pandemic has ended. No one needs to risk their life in jail to go do 3 days.
Right.
Are you comfortable with the safety procedures that you're aware of at NRG? You feel okay with those? Just with your opinion?
Yeah, I want everybody to keep their mask on, keep their face shield on, social distance. We all need to adopt the policy. Everybody has COVID, so you treat everybody like they have, like they have COVID, and let's try to get through this, and hopefully we'll start getting some top cover from our elected leaders and give us clear, accurate information, something we all can believe in. When the vaccine comes out, I'll be in the Army, so I won't have a choice. I will stand in line and get stuck. In the Army, people come to my office, sir, I don't want to take a flu shot. I'm like, when you got two choices, you can lay down or get held down. But you get a flu shot today. So I will get the vaccine quick, fast, in a hurry as soon as it's out. So I'll be a test dummy for you.
What's your rank, Judge?
I'm a major.
Major.
Are you going to be boots on the ground out there, or what's the deal?
I hope to be fingers on the keyboard, but you can't predict what's going to happen when you're out there.
You have any concerns? I know we have less than a minute left, but do you have any concerns? We're talking about safety for jury trials. I'm less concerned about safety. I think it's a real concern, but actual justice coming from a jury trial where everybody looks like this.
It's so many things, but we're all walking into the unknown. And so somehow you got to balance, because I know if I was innocent sitting in jail for 3 years, I want to trial tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so it's just so much. It's so much to balance, and that's why I tell people lawyers have to be lawyers and go in there for those people and fight. And if things you don't feel they're fair, then you file your motions and continue to fight and appeal and everything else. And hopefully the wheels of justice will turn and get to a point where people can feel satisfied. Nobody should be in jail and feel like they didn't get their fair day in court, if that's possible. But that was always my goal with my clients. Whether we get from A to C or A to Z, you're going to understand how we got all the way there.
Well, with that being said, Judge, thank you so very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And
thank you all for giving me the platform, and thank you for the questions. And I'll see you soon.
I'll see you, Judge.
Be
David
safe.
Ferris, it's always a pleasure.
Be safe, Judge. And let us know if you're over there and you have a good enough internet connection. We've never done a show internationally before. Zoom makes everything.
I'm happy to try.
David, thank you for coming on. Justin, you're the best. Mark, thank you for running the booth. Next week,
it's all you.
Next week, we have Grant Schneider coming on the show, president of TCDLA, and we're going to talk about jury trials that are starting up. A lot of us are starting jury trials next week, so we should get the lowdown on all of it. So be sure to tune in next Thursday. Go Texans, go Rockets, go Astros. Liberty or death, rock and roll. We're out.